Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Along with Brock Netter, I'm Dewey Dailey. As we bring you into today's episode. Another fun week of sports behind us. Some big outcomes for some teams. Also some big games coming up in this upcoming week. So it should be a fun episode here as we reach sort of the halfway point in the fall sports season. Getting closer. Yeah. A little bit closer. We're definitely past the opening, and we're getting a little bit closer
for sure.
to the
we're
middle
at
of the
the
season.
halfway. We're at the halfway point for soccer. We're not quite there for volleyball yet, even though they kind of start at the exact same time. But we're not quite there for volleyball just yet. About halfway there for soccer. We're there for football. It's week 5.
Right. Week 5. We live. Yeah, this goes quick.
This has been a fast fall. I didn't realize that until literally just now as I'm saying that. Yeah. Wow, that is crazy.
So the format for this week going to be very similar to last week. Brock and I will have a handful of games, and then we'll also have some clips of Bruce as well. So we'll see how those turn out this week. They were okay last week. Some of them were a lot. I thought they were going to be like 2-3 minute clips. Some of them were 5-6 minutes. So some nice insight from Bruce, who is still down in Houston, although he'll be back on. I don't know which day he's getting back, but his first day back with us will be on Thursday when he goes to Valley. For the Ironton St. Joe and Valley. I think it's a boys soccer game, so it'll be nice to have Bruce back, and I'm assuming he'll be with us for our football stream this week as well. So it should be a fun week here at Southern Ohio Sports Authority. So
quick question: what are the odds that he cut his hair while he was in Texas?
Oh, and now
I mean, to be fair, he's going to send in clips, so the clips are just what we.
Oh, we'll find out
before. What are the chances that he got a haircut, like before he goes to the Valley game on Thursday?
0. That would be I'd say that would probably be like a weekend thing. I mean, I don't know if. I don't know if I would get a haircut while I was away, at just some random barber shop that I'd never been to before. I don't have that kind of trip. Barber, I could not be a barber. There is so much pressure on barbers. It's ridiculous. And you have to have so much trust. My aunt is my barber, so I'm fine. But if I had some stranger doing it, I don't know. That's a lot of trust.
I don't know. I still go to the barber to get my beard trimmed and everything, and I've gone through some tests. I mean, when I lived in Illinois for 2 years, you got to find someone. You got to find someone, and you learn real quick who you can and can't trust. I'm with you on that. I only say that. I only ask that just because I know he hasn't cut his hair in a while, which is probably a good move because John's 8 years older than I am, I think, or something like that, and he still has all his hair. Here I am, 31. I got nothing. And you were prepping your hair just before the episode. I got to make sure my hair looks good.
Oh, yeah.
And all you guys are just witnessing the beautiful baldness of Brock Netter today. So I hope you guys enjoy. The episode as much as we're just enjoying riffing right now.
Right. So we'll jump right into things with some volleyball reviews from the previous week. But before we get into our games, I understand you had a quick story to tell about Unioto and Southeastern, which Bruce will take over once you wrap it up.
So you remember last week when I said there would be no gold ball in the SEC because the competition is just way too good, and I even said it's probably going to be Southeastern that does it.
Yeah.
So I was at work. I was at work Friday. This was after the game had already happened.
That was on Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the game was on Thursday.
Oh, Thursday.
Yeah, the game was Thursday. So the next day, I'm at work at Chillicothe Primary, and I work with one of the players' mom. Okay, so it's about to be the end of the day, and we're passing each other in the hallway, and as she's passing me, she says, "Hey, I blame you for what happened last night." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about?" She said, "You know what I mean." And I said, "I don't know, but I've got 3 minutes. What's up?" And she says, "Well, we listened to overtime about an hour or two before the game. It's we heard what you said." And my daughter looked at me. I'm not going to name who the player was. That's at their discretion. She said that her daughter looked at her and said, "That's not going to happen. They are not beating us. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen, and we are going to remain undefeated." And sure enough, They got swept.
It was 3-0
It was
too.
3-0.
And if you remember, Southeastern was the team last year that knocked off Adena for their only league loss. So Southeastern just spoiling people's gold balls.
I say it every year. The SVC is way too good to have gold balls. And I know it happens. I know it absolutely happens. Southeastern, Adena, Unioto, they've all won gold balls. And it's an incredible accomplishment when it does happen. But the competition year in and year out is just way too good. You always know you're almost guaranteed at least one loss. You just don't know who that loss is going to be too. So I just wanted to have that little story out there.
Right. It's a tough league. You got to show up every night, and it kind of shows how impressive it is when teams actually do go the whole season with a gold ball. So.
100%. Also, shout out to the player mom for watching over time. Genuinely appreciate that.
So once again, Bruce will take the summary for that game.
Hope everyone's doing well. Still down here in Humble, Texas. Going to do a little match review here of a big one in the SVC on Thursday night. A Southeastern beat Unioto in 3. Unioto actually led 24-19 in the first set before the Panthers rolled off 7 straight points to finish the set and then just rolled to a 3-set victory. They were led by Josie Lougheed, who was a monster for the Panthers, 28 kills and only 3 sets, along with 17 digs and 5 assists. So the Lougheed family kind of has been one of the best kept secrets in the SVC for a while. I thought her sister Hannah a couple years ago had a really good case for SVC Player of the Year, and then Josie has just kind of picked up where she's left off. Both outstanding all around players, and she's a big time hitter. It creates all kinds of defensive issues for other teams, and that's one of the reasons why the Panthers are 7-1 on the season. So, Unioto is now 9-1 after they beat Washington Courthouse on Saturday to kind of bounce back. But big time in this match, Chloe Wills had 28 assists. She had 0 errors in the match as well. Abby Urick kept the Shermans off balance with 5 aces in the shortened match. And then Lougheed, Urick, Jesse Higley, Willis, Morgan Ware were all over the floor with a lot of digs to limit the big hitters of Unioto. Ella Cutright, Unioto's big hitter, was limited to only 5 kills in the match, a season low for her, even with some 3-set matches, a race to 2 on those. Like I said, Unioto bounced back with a big-time win on Saturday over Washington Courthouse. It just makes the SVC even more of a race, as, it's going to be, I think it's 3 teams right now with 1 loss. Adena has gone out, a big-time schedule, really playing some outstanding teams. Southeastern's done a really good job of getting started with a new head coach. Unioto, like I talked about in the preseason, very experienced, but susceptible to losing some sets that they probably shouldn't have, and they were not able to bounce back as Lougheed really took over this match. Like I mentioned, a 3-0 win for Southeastern makes things in the SVC very interesting as we move forward as well.
But for here with Brock and I, we'll talk about Logan Elm and Circleville. It was one of the games we previewed last week. It was actually Circleville took it 3-0. However, extremely close throughout all 3 sets, 25-21. 25-21, and 25-18 to complete the sweep. Circleville remains not undefeated, but still has the 1 loss to Bloom Carroll in the MSL. And they actually took a set from Bloom Carroll in that matchup. Now, they meet again on September 26th, so unless something happens before then, that could potentially be Bloom Carroll wins it outright with a win, or Circleville could
get a share,
with the win. But for in the loss for Logan Elm, they moved to 2-2 in the MSL. Statistically speaking, Claire King, 12 kills, 1 block, Hannah Rhodes, 26 assists, and Lindsay Van Hoos with 19 digs. Logan Elm is at Amanda on Tuesday, and I forget where Circleville's at. I didn't write that down. But obviously going to be somewhere, I would assume, Tuesday, as that's probably a league night for MSL games. Actually, I think they're at Hamilton Township is where they're at on Tuesday.
I wanted to say Liberty Union, but I wasn't sure.
And actually, those 2 teams meet up again on October 3rd. And the only reason I mention that is because although it was a sweep, I mean, 25-21, 25-21, 25-18. I mean, those are three extremely competitive sets, so it should be an interesting matchup to check out the next time around at Logan Elm.
Both teams are filled with a lot of young talent, and they've been able to make impacts. Very very early in the season, they just continue to get better. Game after game. So there's no doubt that rematch. I don't think the rematch will be a sweep.
Right.
So both teams are gonna be much improved. I do think just pride alone will at least get it to 4 sets.
Right. And then a couple of volleyball milestones. Well, before that, Bruce will have a review for Portsmouth and Rock Hill from this past week.
Another match review, we go down to the Ohio Valley Conference, where no team is unbeaten through only 3 rounds of play, or 4 rounds of play. So it's going to be a matchup where anyone can win on any night. And Rock Hill, who came in with no league wins on Thursday, took Portsmouth to the brink at home. They traded sets. Portsmouth won the first and the third. Rock Hill won the second and the fourth. But the Trojans were ultimately able to win 15-11 in the fifth, led by Olivia Dickerson, 17 kills on the match. Madison Ankrum and Mesa Calvin each played a key role in the match as well, with 7 and 6 kills respectively. Calvin had a great all-around game, 20 assists, 4 aces, 2 blocks, 16 digs. Dickerson also had 14 digs. Katie Ankrum led the team with 19 digs to go along with 3 aces. It's a big road win for the Trojans to stay within a game of Chesapeake and South Point, who each only have 1 league loss so far. I believe Gallia and Fairland each only have 1 league loss also. So Portsmouth with 2 league losses has a lot of teams they got to jump. But at the same time, they are able to stay in it by getting that big win at Rock Hill. So it is a conference, as we talked about in the preseason, is pretty wide open. Fairland and Gallia Academy returned some key players from last year's 2 teams that kind of dominated the league, but they lost some really big time pieces and also their main ball handlers. So it's going to be an interesting league to follow throughout the season. And as we've already talked about, each team with at least 1 loss already in league play. So it's going to be something to watch for definitely down the stretch here in the OVC as we get nearer to the halfway point. I don't know why I mentioned down the stretch, as we're not even to the halfway point. And we get to the halfway point, we'll kind of reassess and then take a look back at it again moving forward.
But some milestones that I think occurred a little bit before this week, but we were kind of just now getting to them. Emilie Johnson of Lucasville Valley and Grace Townsend both eclipsed the 1,000 career assists mark. With Townsend, she has 252 assists on the year already through 34 sets, and only a junior, mind you. So, definitely going to get closer to 1,500, and, you never know, maybe
she'll pass
2,000. You never know.
Oh, for sure. She'll get 2,000.
And then for Emilie Johnson, a senior at Valley, over 100 assists this season. They're somewhere in the middle of the pack of the SOC too. So, 2 big ball handlers for those 2 clubs.
Time to talk about an impact player. Adena's Grace Townsend reached 1,000 career assists only as a junior. After not playing any varsity as a freshman, Townsend has gotten to the 1,000 assist mark lightning fast pace. She's at 1,070 entering Monday night, averaging 9 assists a set in her first year and now 11 games as the primary setter for the Warriors. Townsend also has over 300 digs, 50 aces, and closing in on 100 kills on her short career as well. She's only going to get better as time moves on. And it's just a player that can really do a lot of different things for Coach Smith. I know they originally were looking at running a 6'2", but it's more now back to the 5'1", as they're trying to get her to be a big hitter at the beginning of the season, but now they're going to use her more in that natural ball handler role that she was in as a season ago. Almost 900 assists as a freshman, or as a sophomore in her first varsity year, is a big-time player for the Warriors. Off to a 5-6 start, but playing a really good competition so far, and I could see them making another deep tournament run, just as Adena typically does. Another impact player, Valley's Emilie Johnson, also reached the 1,000 career assist mark for the Indians, and is another player that is a multi-sport athlete, can do a lot of different things for the Indians, but does a really good job of setting up their offensive attack. And really, it's a, Valley may be underappreciated in what they can do because of just how talented and deep like a Wheelersburg is in that conference. But make no mistake about it, Emilie Johnson, one of the top passers in the Southern Ohio Conference.
I know we released graphics for both of them as well. Big thanks to Jacob Wise, who does all of our, pretty much any digital graphic you see. Our logo right here, any overtime logo you see, it's all Jacob Wise getting it done for us. But yeah, some big milestones.
We should have overtime gear.
Man,
we should have some SOSA overtime gear. I mean, I know SOSA is a brand, but we also have overtime.
It's a subgroup. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, we should have something that says overtime, even if it just says SOSA OT.
Right. I mean, I would just take a like a polo with just like a little patch, or like a little logo. But
who do we need to talk to about this?
I think that might be Mr. Wickline.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe. I don't know who else we would talk to. That's the money man around here. So we'll jump into some noteworthy games for this upcoming week. First, I believe John will take Adena at Huntington in an SVC matchup. I think that's on Tuesday.
We've talked a lot of Adena so far. We're going to talk even more as a big game on Tuesday night. Adena at Huntington, big time implications in the Scioto Valley Conference race. Like I mentioned before, Adena 5-6 overall, coming off a 3-game losing streak, losing 3 games up at Worthington Kilbourne, playing Division I and I believe a Division II. I think Highland was a Division II opponent, but either way, it's just 3 really good opponents. Just to get better throughout the season. Huntington is 6-2. They've dropped 2 SVC matches in 5 sets. In fact, 3 of their first 4 SVC matches have gone to a 5th set. Big time, one of the things to look for Huntington is they are 4-1 at home, and they've played those 3 matches in the 5th set, so they have a lot of experience going deep into matches. Casey Carroll and Emma Henshaw are the big hitters for the Huntsmen, but if you really focus on them, Meredith Hirsch and Haley Stengel are also hitters that have to be accounted for, all over 60 kills on the season for the Huntsmen. Huntington also very aggressive with their serve, led by Carroll and Lily Steele, each with 19 aces already on the season. Carroll and Henshaw lead the team in digs, while Allie Baker and Leah McCloskey also cover a lot of ground. They play the 6-2 with McCloskey and Steele, each averaging over 5 assists a set. They both do a really good job of setting up the offense. Now, for Adena, their front line of Katie Burns, Brindley Preston, and Corinne Day have each given teams fits. A lot of kills from all 3 of them. Preston and Day have done a really good job at the net blocking as well. So both of them are, when the SVC stats come out in a week, will be near the top in both kills and blocks. Also defensively for the Warriors, they've got Brooke Bossert, covers a ton of ground for the Warriors, 3-year starter back there. Cameron Sowers, Haley Howard, Brenna Bossert as well. Ava Kruger plays all over the court and does a little bit of everything for Coach Smith. And then, I mentioned, going back to that 5-1 setup, Grace Townsend is being asked to handle the majority of the ball handling roles again this season, which is just going to build on her stats even more because she just does such a good job consistently of finding teammates. Now, I think this will be a fun matchup in the township. Hopefully it'll be a rocking crowd. I'd expect at least a 4-setter. Wouldn't surprise me if it goes 5, but Adena's got some big time size at the net, which will be difficult for the Huntsmen to overcome. But I watched a match last year where Huntington was undersized against a Westfall team, and they ended up beating them just because of how well they move the ball around, how athletic they are at the net. I think this could be a really, really good matchup, a sleeper to watch for later in the district tournament as well.
But the games for us will be Fairfield at Whiteoak. Those are the 1 and 2, or they are ranked 1 and 2 overall in terms of standings in the Shack 2. For Fairfield, they're 4 and 4 overall, however, 4 and 4 in the league. So it's been a little tough for them in the non-conference games, but 4 and 0 in the Shack. Look for Joby Hatton, who currently with 95 kills, averaging 3.4%. That's second overall in the Shack. She leads the Shack with 140 digs and also has 19 aces. And Kelsey Clark has 167 assists, which is fourth in the Shack. And then look for Mackenzie Anderson as well. She has 51 kills, which is second on the team. Now for Whiteoak, they're coming in. I do want to say the Shack is how they do like league play, because it's not always split Shack 1, Shack 2, but volleyball and I think basketball are the two that it is.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how you play the teams on your side one or twice, and you play the other side once, but when you play those teams on the other side, it still counts as a league game. Mm-hmm. So like both of these teams are in the Shack 2. Whiteoak is 4 and 1 in league play, but their only loss was to North Adams, who is in the Shack 1. So technically undefeated in their division, but they do have one loss to North Adams, who I think is in first in the other division. So definitely not a loss to hang your head about.
I promise I'm catching all this as you're saying it.
Well, no, it's kind of confusing. No, I mean, it's the like the SOC doesn't do that, right?
Yeah,
now they probably play each other, but that doesn't count towards league.
No, that doesn't count towards their
league rank.
towards their league rankings
or record.
Like that. Like if Wheelersburg was to play Notre Dame, it wouldn't count it against their conference standings or anything like that.
But for Whiteoak, Lydia Carr, Brianna Hill, Jaylee Parr, all of those, they're actually all three seniors. They're all over 30 kills on the season. And Claire Ames, another senior, has 90 assists for Whiteoak as well. So four pretty impactful seniors to look out for. For Whiteoak, should be a good game and will have a pretty big impact on the Shack 2 rankings as they head down the stretch here. I know how we mentioned some teams, I think in volleyball most of the time, each team really in all of our coverage area conferences play each other twice. I think it's mostly soccer where you get kind of the one time through schedule.
Yep.
I believe that matchup for Fairfield and Whiteoak, I think the next time they play, I can't remember the date, but I think it's like their last game, league game of the season. So
is it a Friday night?
It wouldn't surprise me. I know we talked about the soccer game I think that was Lynchburg and Fairfield maybe.
Something like that.
That played on that day, but definitely a matchup to look for this week, and it wouldn't surprise me if that game has pretty impactful meaning headed down the stretch as well.
We've been covering the Shack for 4 years now, and I don't know why it's still mind-boggling they don't have football.
Yeah.
Some
do. Like Manchester has it. And I think Manchester is actually the only one that is like OHSA affiliated.
Okay.
And then
like Fayetteville have like a prep, maybe not
a
prep school, but
Fayetteville
like a club school
and
club team
Eastern
like
Brown. I know for sure Fayetteville because I've seen them on our schedule. But I think like maybe Eastern Brown has like a club team and they'll play like. I'm not really sure how that works if they're like other club teams they play because like obviously an OHSA affiliated team isn't going to like, I don't want to say waste a week, but like they're not going to play a club school during the regular season because I don't even know if that's allowed or not.
Probably not.
But I'd say Eastern Brown probably scrimmage, and I don't even know if we'll use Fayetteville because I know for sure that's one. I'd say they probably scrimmage a lot of like OHSA teams throughout the preseason, but it'd kind of be interesting to see what their like regular season schedule looks like.
Football would ever come to Ohio.
8-man?
8-man football.
How's that work? I know like 7-on-7s, but
I mean it's essentially the exact same thing, just with 8 players.
Does the center count as a player? Also 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's literally the exact same thing. A couple teams when I was out in Illinois, they actually had 8-man football.
Do they tackle?
Yeah. It's regulation rules. Everything's the same. You just have 3 less players on each side of the ball.
I think that'd be an interesting like instead of like because college has spring ball, but like if in Ohio we had just like a spring season, and that's all it was just full contact 7 on, or I guess it'd be 8 on 8s, but
I don't know if they would do that in the spring with the temperatures rising. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, if you do it early spring, I mean, it's like,
I mean, yeah.
because I mean, playing baseball, I mean, you're wearing, or at least when I played, like I'm wearing sleeves probably the first half of the season. I mean, if you play it like early March into April,
I mean, that's true.
Now, once it gets into May, you probably want to call it off. But like March and April, like those are pretty cool months.
I mean, that's true. That's true.
Especially, I mean, around here, it's so unpredictable that it's hard to tell. I mean,
that's a good point too. It's a good point.
So, I mean, I'm pretty sure in February there were days it was like 80 degrees.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
It's just the weather.
It was like 85 like 3 or 4 Christmases ago. I was so angry about that.
Yeah, the weather here is something else. So we'll send it to John for Unioto and Fairfield Union coming up this week.
Another non-league game to look for will happen on Saturday when 9-1 Unioto heads past Lancaster to take on 8-2 Fairfield Union in a very large non-conference tilt. Both teams have 2 big league games in between, so those records could be better or a little bit worse, but it'll be interesting to see how this matchup goes with obviously with Christian Thompson being the big gun for Fairfield Union. Most of their sets go to her, and obviously she makes the most of them. She's very efficient when she is set to and does a really good job of putting the ball down. Unioto really struggle with Josie Lockheed and Southeastern, who have a similar set of attack as what Fairfield Union does, as most of the plays go through Lockheed, as most of what Fairfield Union does goes through Thompson. So it could be a really interesting matchup to see how Unioto defends. Unioto has some really athletic defenders in the back line. If you heard their names during softball, you know the similar names, with Speck and Miller, Daniels. They can really cover a lot of grounds. Alexa West back there does a good job for them as well. It's a team that they're very experienced, but they do have, not perfected, so they still have some stuff they have to tighten up on, and we'll see how they do in that non-league game, as they've got Piketon on Tuesday and then Zane Trace on Thursday before they take on Fairfield Union. So those are 2 big league matchups beforehand. Another big player to watch for Fairfield Union is junior Adeline Wolf, one of the top defenders at the net in the state, averages over a solo block per set, and has just been outstanding all season for them at the net. It's a pretty senior-heavy team at Fairfield Union, same with Unioto. A lot of seniors are going to be on the court. This was a match that went 5 last year at Unioto on a Saturday. Going to be very interesting to see how Unioto does against the one big hitter. See if they can adjust to it well, and see how they scheme moving forward in that way. So should be a great match on Saturday morning, afternoon. Definitely will be one to watch over there by Lancaster.
But for us, we'll go ahead and jump into boys soccer now.
Oh, there's one more game there's one volleyball game.
There is, yes.
Which is South Webster at Wheelersburg on Thursday. That is a huge matchup. More than likely, even though it's early in the year, that's probably the conference title game.
Well, they opened with each other. I believe.
They opened with each other. I
think Webster 3-1.
Yeah. Webster won 3-1. I think that was.
That was early.
I think that was each team's season opener.
No, because we previewed that one early. That was a while ago.
Yeah. Webster won 3-1, and Webster, they're currently 9-0 on the year. They've lost just 3 sets.
And 2 of them were to Adena.
Exactly.
And the other one was to Wheelersburg.
Wheelersburg.
And that was
7-1.
I think those 2 games were the same week. Because if I remember right, I think we previewed both of those games on the same show. So since their opening week, they haven't lost. They
haven't lost at all. They're both just incredible programs. They reload year after year. This is kind of more of a retooling year for Wheelersburg more than anything. Just replacing so much production, but even with them replacing so much production, they have found production as well. I mean, you still have Bree Strickland, you still have Grace Woodward, I believe it is, and Gracie Perkins as well. Just a 6'1" middle hitter who's just crushing the ball.
Yep.
Game in and game out, and then on the other side, Bella Claxton, Skylar Zimmerman. It starts with them. You have Addie Claxton as well, Michaela Raynard as well. So it's more than likely it is the SOC2 championship game. Looking forward to it. I'll probably go down Thursday, make the trip down to Wheelersburg to cover that game. We would have been remiss if we didn't at least mention that one.
Right.
The fact that it's Thursday and it's such
That's
a
important.
huge game early in the season.
Yep, definitely an important game. So now we would jump into boys soccer with so that wasn't originally on the script. I'm not going to say why, but it wasn't originally on the script. It wasn't my fault. That's all I'll say. And then Brock told me before we started that, hey, we need to talk about this game. And I was like, all right, well, just sit, I'm probably going to forget. So just say something to me. And I was just going to go right by it because I didn't have it written down.
It's okay. It is okay.
But now we'll jump into boys soccer with a couple game reviews, one from us, one from John, and then we'll have one game preview, and John will have one as well. We're actually going to hang on Minford for both of the ones here in the studio. Minford and South Webster, this is one we previewed last week. We kind of talked about how, although they haven't won many of them, like South Webster has hung around with a lot of these teams. I think it was 1-0 or 2-1 against Wheelersburg.
Yeah.
And then here we go against Minford 3-2. I'd say Minford and Wheelersburg probably the top two teams in the SOC2, but I mean Webster's a win away from jumping one of those teams if they would be able to take one.
So not to mention, I mean, you still have Northwest in there, who's still a very formidable, opponent. They're still loaded, so they can still make a lot of noise, even if they don't beat either Minford or Wheelersburg, which they played. Minford earlier lost 3-2, I believe.
Northwest.
Northwest. I don't think they played Wheelersburg just yet. I don't think so. But I mean, either way, the competition this year in the SOC2 is higher than I've ever remembered it.
How about Portsmouth West too?
Oh my God, I still can't. I mean, they're 3-4-1.
Right.
They haven't won an SOC2 game yet, but they're still incredibly tough as well.
Right. Now, and Max Preps is a little tricky because once you get inside of 2010, the records get a little
they get a little foggy.
They're 3-10, but there's only I know they played more than 13 games or whatever. Yeah. So it's did they win more or not? But if you look at Max Preps, I think it would be safe to say they haven't won 5 games in 10 or 15 years, close to that. At least in the last 8 or 9, they haven't won 5+ games, and they're already 2 wins away from doing just that, and a big tie against Minford, which we'll talk about here in a minute as well. But
if that's incorrect, please someone from Portsmouth West, please tell us.
I would love to have the official statistic there. But for Minford and South Webster, 3-2, the Falcons take this one. They remain undefeated in the SOC2, 6-0-1, 3-0-1 in the league. Miles Montgomery had a goal and an assist, and Ethan Cordell and Troy Rhodes both had goals for the Falcons. For South Webster, they dropped to 5-2, 3-2 in the league. South Webster has Waverly this Thursday. But in that game, Hunter Barnard had a goal and an assist, and Carson Coriel had a goal as well. So South Webster, definitely a team that... And I know we mentioned how some teams play each other once or twice. Is the SOC2, do they play each other twice?
I believe so. I believe that. I know that Minford and Wheelersburg, they play each other the very last game of their season after is it Tuesday or Thursday that they play?
It is Tuesday.
Yes.
So they play the last Thursday.
Yeah. They each play the second time around. It's the very last game of the regular season. So definitely, huge, conference, huge conference implications already this year. I couldn't figure out the word I wanted to say.
Yeah, it's all right. Then we'll send it over to John for Athens and Unioto.
A big soccer matchup on the boys' side the other day was Athens at Unioto. Athens takes it 3-2. Unioto gets an early goal to take a 1-0 lead. Then Athens quickly responds. Then they add 2 more early in the second half to take a 3-1 lead before Lucas Haynes was actually fouled in the box. You know how I feel about penalty kicks, but this was a good call. Was fouled in the box, converts the penalty kick, makes it 3-2 with about 12 minutes left, but Athens is able to hold on for the victory. Athens now stands at 6-1-2 on the season. Their loss was to Marietta, which was a crazy score, an 8-3 game. Now, Marietta is extremely good. I think they'll be the 1 seed in Division 2, but it's still 8-3 is a crazy score considering that Athens has only given up 16 goals so far on the season. So half of them coming in that one contest. They also tied Logan, beat a very good Fairfield Union team 4-2 at Fairfield Union. Then that win over Unioto, and they've got the inside track to the 2 seed in the Southeast District, which is very important. Andy Pigman has 10 goals in the season for them. Austin Jarunas with 5 goals, and so does Sullivan Pillow. It's a team that has, they lost Brady Jarunas, and he was their big time scorer for a couple of years, but they returned a lot of guys that have played a lot of important minutes for them. This was the regional runner-up 2 years ago to Unioto. They lost 2-1 over at Athens a couple of seasons ago. And it's a team that they're hungry to try to make a run back. Athens has to be up there. Without statistical, full stats on it, I would think Athens and Berlin Highland are the 2 schools that have made the most regional and regional final appearances without breaking through to the state tournament. Is this the year for Athens? I'm not sure. I think Marietta is going to be a big one to have to run through, but this Athens team is very good. Unioto, literally this very second, is taking on a Zane Trace team in an SVC matchup. They have 2 losses on the year, both 3-2. One was to Wheelersburg, one was to Athens. Both will be top seeds in their respective divisions. Good teams. Lucas Haynes at some point this week will pass. Will likely break another record for the Shermans, and they've had a lot of help. That Cameron Thompson, Owen Link, really good back on the defense. They've given up more goals than kind of I think the defense would want, but at the same time, they've been doing it as they're playing with some inexperienced guys. They've been down a player for a majority of the year, and when he comes back here in a couple games, that'll just make them even better moving forward. This is, like I've said in like the volleyball previews, this could be a preview of a big time match later on down the line in a district semi, maybe a district final game, if things go, one way or the other. So it could be a big time matchup, and we'll see maybe on a neutral site or maybe down at Athens in the future. So big win for Athens, 3-2, moved to 6-1-2 on the season.
And then we'll head to some game previews for this week. We'll, as previously mentioned, hang with Minford as they have a meeting at Wheelersburg that is on Tuesday. Wheelersburg still not only undefeated in league play, but undefeated overall. 7-0, 3-0 in the SOC2. What is there to say about Max Higgins, who has 20 goals through 7 games, 1 goal away from averaging a hat trick through the first 7 games of the season. Ethan Hochstetler, a junior, and Nick Sylvia are also 2 players to look out for. They're both right around a goal a game. This Higgins kid, and I don't think it's like any secret that I'm not the biggest like soccer follower, but like I feel like it's like 20 goals in 7 games. That is ridiculous.
That is insane. there are kids who in their high school careers don't score 20 goals.
That's right. That's what
And he's done it in 7 games.
and like against some of the team, and it's not. And the SOC2 is a tough conference
It
too.
is.
And like they've played, like I know non-conference they played Unioto. Oh, man, there was another game, non-league game we previewed, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But like their non-league schedule is like relatively tough too.
I mean, there's a reason they're in regionals every single year. And I mean, even 2-3 years ago, they were in a Final Four. I mean, they just have standout talent year in and year out. I don't know where these kids come from or what's in the water down there, but it's got to be something. I don't know what it is.
For Minford, they'll come into the game, as we already talked about, 6-0-1, 3-0-1 in the league. Miles Montgomery, 10 goals on the season, along with 5 assists, and Ethan Cordell with 8 goals, Gavin Downey with 6. We kind of touched on previously how the only not league win for Minford was the tie with West, but West 3-4-1 to start the year, so definitely not. West, I would say, is a little tougher than they have been, previous years where they haven't even won a game or they've won like one game in the entire season. So, big tie. John was talking about it when it happened, and he was like, "That's a tie, but that's an upset." Like
For real, that really is.
That's the only time that. Like I can't think of a time in like I'll use the NFL as an example where there has been a tie and it was like, oh, that's an upset. But
that's fair.
I mean, when you have a team that in Minford's case is looking has big aspirations for an SOC2 title, and they tie with a team who like has traditionally been at the bottom of the league, it's like, I wonder like if that's like something you like celebrate or not because it's a tie.
I doubt it, but I'm sure there was a celebration on the inside. Like, hey, like we just tied the team that won, and then won a district title last year as well. So
I'd say celebration probably wasn't the right word, but it was probably more like the inspiration and motivation going throughout the season.
We can compete, guys.
And then we'll
Shout
send
out to the Senators.
No, seriously. And we'll actually have, it won't be soccer, but this Saturday, actually, when Portsmouth West comes up here to Waverly, that's a big SOC2 for football, or a big football game in the SOC2. Then we'll send it down to John in Houston. He'll talk about Fairfield Union and Bloom Carroll.
Big time soccer match on Wednesday on the boys' side of the MSL when the 5-2 Fairfield Union Falcons soar over to Bloom Carroll to take on the 6-1 Bulldogs. Big time MSL matchup. The last 2 MSL champions. It could be a preview of the third, MSL winner. Kind of different teams, as you would expect in a matchup like this. As Bloom Carroll plays a lot of defense, doesn't score as much as Fairfield Union does. Fairfield Union a little more open, but they've given up 7 goals in their 2 losses. So I mean they've done a good job in their wins, but it's the losses that they've been giving up some goals in those. Kind of like opponents, Lancaster, Fairfield Union beat them 6-0, Bloom Carroll beat them 2-0. That doesn't really mean much of anything. Caleb Redding, Caleb Schmelzer, Cohen Eichhorn, just some guys for Fairfield Union that can really play. Redding, a big-time scorer. Schmelzer, a big-time defender. They're a good team, very solid. It's going to be, I think if this game was at Fairfield Union, I might lean towards the Falcons on this. But it'll definitely be a must-watch matchup on Wednesday night at Bloom Carroll, as these are 2 very good programs, especially over the last few years. Bloom Carroll really has been at or near the top of the MSL for the last 25 years or so in boys soccer. So they're the program to look for. But Fairfield Union, a well-coached, solid team overall. They play a good brand of soccer, very physical, very big, tough to score on, tough to really make much out of if you're an opponent trying to look to score. So look for this to be low scoring. It's a big time matchup. Like I said, more than likely, the winner of the MSL will come from this matchup Wednesday night over at Bloom Carroll.
That sounded so official.
Yeah.
We're just everywhere. We're in Houston, Texas, people.
And then I think John will actually talk about Ironton St. Joe and Valley, which he'll be back and cover that one as well. So yeah, we'll send it down to Houston to John.
Big time SOC1 matchup on Thursday. Ya boy will be back in town and will be there in Lucasville as Ironton St. Joe at 7-0 will roll to Valley, who is only 1-4. Only 1-4, but 1-0 in the SOC. And Ironton St. Joe, 7-0, but I got a stat for you. The teams they have played so far are combined 3-20-4 on the season. They have outscored them 36-5. Like I mentioned before, you can only play who's on your schedule. Wesley Neal has scored 11 goals for them already. Landon Rowe with 8. Brady Mettinger with 7. Evan Balestra does a really good job in goal for them. 43 saves on the season. Now, that 3-20-4, here's one for you. Valley opponents so far are 22-7-2. And I know a lot of those have lost to each other as they started off with Northwest, Minford, South Webster, and Wheelersburg. Just kind of a murderer's row and did not fare well, but they have a good defense. They got a shutout in their last match. They've had a week off to prepare for Ironton St. Joe. They want to get some revenge for last season when they lost in the district tournament to them in a shootout in the semifinals. Chase Powell, Aiden Burchett each scored a pair of goals in their win over Western. Chase Davis also scored for them. Carter Ruby's a guy who's done it before for them. Braxton Dillo and Jake and Rideout do a good job on the defense. It's a team that once they get rolling and pick up some wins, they're going to be a lot more dangerous. And this is a big-time matchup in the SOC1 as they'll play again later in the season, actually in just in a couple weeks also. But for Valley, this is a borderline must-win as they will be protecting home field against a hot and confident Ironton St. Joseph Flyers. Should be a great game. Make sure you follow, like I said, ya boy, for updates on that one on Thursday night.
That'll wrap up our boys coverage with John. And we'll look at some girls match reviews from the previous week. We'll talk about another tie, actually. Fairfield Union and Bloom Carroll tie at 2. So as of now, and John talked about this when he was here, it's something that Fairfield Union had to do if they wanted to, still have a chance at the league, as they dropped to Taze Valley 2-0 a little earlier on. So, they're not going to get another chance at Bloom Carroll. I cannot remember if Taze Valley plays. I can't remember if Taze Valley plays Bloom Carroll, and I can't remember if Taze Valley has a loss or a tie. So I'm not sure how the official standings look.
I don't think in the MSL they've lost yet.
Okay, so if Taze Valley were to knock off Bloom Carroll, that would probably put Taze at the top, and then Bloom Carroll and Fairfield Union would be tied for second. But in the game, Katie McMahon and Peyton Hughes both with goals. And actually, both of those goals allowed Fairfield Union to take a lead. They led 1-0 and led 2-1. So, I think I wouldn't use that loss to Taze Valley to really, I don't know if you want to use describe this team or show what this team can do. I would say look at this team when they're taking on a team that's most likely a league favorite, and
you could put
they led to they were the only team to ever lead in the game, as Bloom Carroll was playing catch up the whole time, and it eventually came down to a 2-2 tie. So
Fairfield Union, they still have a loaded squad. Mm-hmm. They're still a loaded squad, and I mean playing Bloom Carroll and Taze Valley, those are 2 D1 tools, I believe. And I mean, it only makes you better. Say Fairfield Union, they're going to drop to D2. Once the tournament.
Oh, Fairfield Union is D1 right now.
No. They're still Division
Oh, they're
2.
playing D1.
Yeah, but once the tournament hits, you're not playing K's. You're not playing Division 1 teams.
Okay.
You're playing Division 2 teams that are from a size perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They're on an equal playing field. I should say.
And then John will take Jackson and Unioto, which actually you were at. So if you wanted to touch a little on that game a little bit.
I mean that was it wasn't quite the fast paced game I figured it might be. It was more ball control than anything. So I mean each team, they had their chances at the goal. But ultimately, I even tweeted this, during the game that when there's open field and Sydney Carpenter's on the field, you can just forget about it because she's getting to the ball, and if the ball's at her feet, you're not going to catch her.
Right.
You're just not going to catch her. I mean, she has incredibly quick speed. She has a high soccer IQ. She understands what's going on the field. But she has a great touch on the ball, and essentially that's how she scores. She got a breakaway. Unioto's my free. She came out to defend the ball, and Sydney kind of had to tap it around a little bit before finally getting the shot. And it was a 1-0 game. Sydney had the goal though. That was Jackson's first victory over Unioto since 2014.
I was gonna say that was a big non-league victory.
Yeah, that's a huge victory for them. And I mean, not just having the win as a resume piece when tournament comes. So I know that Jackson, I believe they're 6-1-1 right now. But from a mental perspective as well. Unioto is a team they just could never get by, and finally they got by them, and I mean that brings a whole new breath of confidence, to that team. I know Jackson, they play Chillicothe, I believe, next Tuesday as well, so that'll be just another mental test for them. And if Jackson was able to win that game, oh my gosh,
watch out for the Iron Ladies.
Exactly, it'd be something.
And then I think that is all for the game previews. Our only, the game reviews. And we actually talked a little bit about how Unioto had a gauntlet this week. And they actually ended up going 1-2.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're playing, it was Athens, Chillicothe, and Jackson to wrap it up. So definitely a tough stretch of games for Unioto.
And I mean, the Chillicothe game, it was 0-0 for a long time. And then the Cavaliers finally just broke through. And I mean, once they had that first crack and the water kind of got through, Avalanche happened.
And then Carpenter, she's the point guard as well for Bayaka. I thought the name sounded a little bit, because I think we covered Jackson girls basketball, I think 3 times last year, because we had them at Adena, then we had them at the Winter Hoops Classic over at Eastern Brown, then we had their tournament game against Athens as well.
I forgot about the tournament game.
Yeah, I was sick for that game. Like, no, it was bad, because the next tournament game we did was Peebles at Minford. I think it was a sectional final. Carson called the game. I couldn't talk. And
really?
No, I couldn't speak. Like, my voice was shot. And that, I don't know if you could hear it listening to that game, but I had my throat was clogged the entire Jackson-Athens game, and that was the last game I did for 2 weeks, because I was just... I pretty much had a broadcaster torn ACL. I couldn't talk at all, so so yeah, it was...
Broadcaster torn ACL.
It was a rough little stretch, because I actually worked camera. Me and Carson flipped places for that tournament game at Minford, so it was a fun time. And the only game preview coming from Brock and I for this week for girls soccer is Fairfield at Eastern Brown. The reason this is a big game to look for is because Fairfield is one of 2 undefeated, because this is where the Shack combines into one, because I don't think every Shack school has girls soccer.
I don't believe so.
So they just, instead of having Shack 1, because the divisions are already pretty small.
Whiteoak doesn't. I don't think Peoples does either.
So it's just one big Southern Ohio Hills Athletic Conference for girls soccer. Fairfield at Eastern Brown. Fairfield, along with North Adams, are the only two remaining undefeated teams in the league. Fairfield comes in at 5-1, 2-0 in the Shack. Kennedy Zink, 12 goals. Faith Donnelly, 12 goals, 7 assists. And freshman Vivian Henninger has 8 goals as well. Now, for Eastern Brown, 3-3-2, 1-2-1 in the Shack. Emma Litzinger has 7 goals with 5 assists, and Emilie Belmont has 5 goals and a team-high 9 assists. Now, Eastern Brown did tie Lynchburg Clay 1-1. Now, Lynchburg, definitely one of the heavyweights in the Shack for girls soccer, made a trip to the Final Four last year, and I can't remember, did they advance to the state final, or they lost in the... Because they played Grand... who did they play in the... I can't remember.
I think it might have been Grandview Heights.
Because we were actually there the same day, because I think that was when Meadowbrook and Adena or Webster played.
Meadowbrook and Adena.
And both of those were at Logan. And the gyms and the football field are right next to each other. But yeah, Lynchburg Clay, one of the heavyweights in the Shack. So it'll be interesting to see how Eastern Brown fares against Fairfield. And, Fairfield, still tied it for first with North Adams in the league. So, every league game counts, and they only play each team.
They only play each team once. Yeah. So you get one crack to make your impression, and that is it.
All right, and then as we talked about before, John will have Minford at Wheelersburg as both boys and girls play each other. I think that's on the same day as well. I think do they travel together typically to play?
I don't know.
I'm not, because I know like baseball and softball do.
I don't know. Every school is different. They do it differently. My guess would be they might travel together.
Or maybe not, like, I don't even mean like on the same bus, but I mean like when one team plays, like when their girls team plays here, their boys team also plays here on the same day.
Yeah.
Tuesday, big time matchup in SOC girls soccer when Minford will travel to Wheelersburg. I know we talked about it in the last segment on the boys' side. Big time matchup on the girls' side as well. Wheelersburg is 4-1 on the year. They've only given up 4 goals while scoring 24. Bella Miller has chipped in or scored 7. Mia Vastine with 5. Those two really create a lot of different opportunities for the Pirates. So with Amber Blevins in goal, they've got a really solid defense. It's a team that they're coming off a 1-0 win over a very physical Athens team on Saturday. I think they're probably favored because they're at home, but this is a Minford team that can really put up a lot of goals. They are 4-2 on the year with losses to Lynchburg Clay to start the year, and then Paul G. Blazer out of Ashland. That's just one where it's going to happen when you're playing the big time school like that. 28 goals for, 12 given up, with the majority of that coming in those two matches. They did have a nice win at Lancaster, a 2-1 win. 14 goals on the year for Lexi Conkle, Ava Cronin with 5, Marley Rhodes with 4, Maggie Reisner with 3. They're a team that, they can really put it up. They can really score. They're going to have to do it on the road, on the turf, to, get a good head start in SOC play. Also, as always, will be a big-time matchup for tournament seeding, as both teams will be really vying for that around 2 seed. They want to get in that 2-3 seed to avoid Lynchburg Clay as long as possible. Fairfield playing really well over there on the west side as well, and obviously North Adams. Those are some teams that you want to avoid playing for as long as possible. So big time matchup, not only in the conference, but also in the overall scheme of things for the season. So big time matchup. Try to slow down Lexi Conkle as she can really score. I know the game down at Wheelersburg last year was crazy. And, you know, it wouldn't surprise me to see more of that on Tuesday night. Big time matchup.
All right, well, I believe that'll just about do it for us here on this episode, Brock, unless you have any extra thoughts or takes for this upcoming week. I know we'll have some interesting takes in the next episode, but for football for volleyball, girls or boys soccer, do we have anything extra to add?
Man, just what a week. What a week it was. What a week it was. What a week it's about to be.
Right.
And then the week after that, what a week it'll be as well. So, I mean, just so much talent, so many, so many memories, being made, so many instant classics being played, more to be played as well. And it's just, this is the fun time.
Right.
This is the fun time, and then the real fun time is when tournament hits.
Right.
But the action has been great so far, and I know it's only going to get better from here.
All right, well, that'll do it for today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.